Oh boy, now I want some hot wings now. But I had salsa. I'm done for the day. Especially if I want to keep losing weight. Heck yeah. Again, positivity. These are weird times we're in. But we're back in this. We're back at it here. We're having a workshop, and thank you all, by the way, who earlier was here talking and sharing your stories and humor, and for those of you who were helping to support things in this very weird time by getting some boxes and capsules. I go to there's a couple places in town, primarily BW3. Yeah, Dorak, you are correct. Dry crumbles of blue cheese are good in salads. Yes. But I mean, it's not like you'll ever just get like blue cheese and go, oh yeah. You could, but I don't know. It'd be kind of weird. It'd almost dry your mouth out. Plus, you know, there's a bit of a tanginess to it. It'll just kind of make you pucker up a bit. And also, Dorak, it's good to see you still hanging around. I didn't know if you had other business to attend or what was going on. It was awesome to see you. And so, welcome back again for the first time, Dorak the Merciless. Which, by the way, for all you out there, in year one, I mean, it was honestly like the third month that we had been around. We were featured on the front page of Twitch, and Dorak saw us there and stopped in, and Dorak and I became fast friends, especially because I have a story about a friend of mine who has a character named Dorak. Yeah, in a little bit of blue cheese melted onto a steak. Yeah, you don't want to overdo it, because you know, like once you go over like medium well, I mean, you might as well just put ketchup on it and then. Well, Dorak, then let's use our imaginations. Let's do a little bit of easy math, a little easy listening as there's some magical effects playing in the background, and take a look at what this Unearthed Arcana has. It's very interesting for them to just put out more spells. You know, is this hinting that Xanathar's 2 is coming out, or something along those lines? Maybe they'll name it after another famous wizard. You know, if Mordenkainen's had a book of monsters, Volo's already has a book of monsters. I wonder if they do put it into another compendium. I wonder who they'd choose. Maybe Melf? And what about this, Death Angel? What if they went with Fizben? Or Tensor? You know, in Mordenkainen's, Bigby was is like Mordenkainen's assistant in the note-taking there. But yeah, so we might see Tasha, Melf, Tensor, Fizben, or some others. I'm intrigued by tattoos. Is that a new thing? This is playtest content, Dorak. All the Unearthed Arcanas are released for free, and you can download it. I'll put the link. Boop. I'll put the link in chat again. And it's something that Wizards puts out for us to have these conversations, to compare, to playtest, to say no, this is way overpowered, or no one's gonna play this. This is so weak, or it's so niche that it doesn't really do anything here. Yes, there was death. Yes. And we'll definitely be covering that as well. Not tonight, though. Oh, I'm sure there's going to be something. Either that or death. They might sneak this stuff into Theros. Or another, like a campaign-style book. A setting-style book. Ravnik, I think, had a couple spells in it. And, of course, things like Elemental Evil and all that. Because Xanathar's collected the spells and other things from those supplements. So, no, maybe it won't be in a setting. We'll see. We shall see. Death Angel Shadow. So yes, Dorak, this is playtest material, and so we're going to get to nitpick at it. I already have the player's handbook here, ready to go, because we use what's called bounded accuracy in 5th edition as a way to prevent power creep and to prevent splat content from just running rampant. I mean, you know, everything grows over time, right? But let's, you know, we'll read these spells, and if there's something you say, well, let's compare it to something else of equal level, we'll find out where it sits. Pouty, did I see your message? I can certainly give it a try, Pouty, yeah. Just make sure you include that in the message on Discord to me. Alright, so, you know, much like we see here in the spells section, there's Bard spells, Cleric, and you're like, okay, sure, what's a Spirit Shroud? Necromancy, Clerics get Necromancy magic, seems cool. Nothing here that's, that's terabad. So really, this is just more for, if you want to play test it, then sure. Sorcerers have access to this, Warlocks have access to these, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and there we go. This is where the meat and taters are. So let's start taking a look at it, shall we? I mean, there seems like there's a lot here, but, you know, it's not terrible. And, of course, we'll get to the tattoos as well. So, spell descriptions, Acid Stream, a first-level evocation, 30-foot line, concentration up to a minute. A stream of acid emanates from you in a line 30 feet long and 5 feet wide in a direction you choose. Each creature in the line must succeed on a dex saving throw or be covered in acid for the spell's duration or until a creature uses its action to scrape or wash the acid off itself or another creature. A creature covered in the acid takes 3d4 acid damage at the start of each of its turns. And this can also be upcast. So here, you eat some rotten food, and you projectile vomit for a minute. It's kind of, right? It emanates from, it's a very polite way of saying that. But if you don't want it coming from your mouth, I guess you can kind of blow some snot rockets out with your acid stream. Or, I don't know, armpit fart them out. I mean, we could have all sorts of humor. Acid stream, you just eat some like a really hot pepper, and it comes out the other end just as hot. So, you know, offhand, you know, if we have something that's acidic, of course there is Melf's acid arrows. Boop, 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 which is going to be more of a wizardly thing here. Or is that a level? Is Melf's 2? Yeah, I'm sorry. No, so what's there's the cantrip. I thought there was a, I guess it's Chromatic Orb. Might be the acidic spell that would be similar. I don't know. 3d4. It's... Oh, we'll get there, Shukan, yeah. Oh, yeah, some of these I do think are going to need some adjusting. Now, Acid Stream, you know, just a straight-up 3d4, it's kind of like a magic missile. However, what's nice is that this Acid Stream, its concentration, you're technically not puking it up, which means that you can still cast other spells while this is emanating from you. And you can... I think it's powerful because you can hit several creatures every round as you're a lawn sprinkler with this acid. And then, of course, if you're casting anything else, you know, cantrips or other things that don't require concentration. And at the start of its turn, it takes 3d4 acid. which isn't highly resisted in 5th Ed. You know, some things are, but not a lot. And it is also eating an action. You know, with Magic Missile, it's all but a guaranteed hit, unless there's an extreme circumstance. But the creature can still take its action. And here, I guess they can, but it's this guaranteed. You know, you're getting 10 Magic Missiles, possibly. And so it helps to. It would help the party in this instance because you're forcing your enemies to use their actions not to dodge or get away, but to scrape acid off themselves. Or wash acid off themselves. It does mean allies as well, but that's... you know, that might be a circumstantial thing, Tackler. You know, you want to have some battlefield, you know, considerations, but I don't know, maybe you're up higher, maybe all your allies are, you know, not in your line of acid. But yes, it could hit your allies. And so the fact that you're here spewing acid deals damage, consumes an action, and you can cast other spells at the same time because this doesn't use your voice for verbal components or somatic components. It's a little strong to me, especially when we look at other level 1 spells. You know, Hellish Rebuke is you're already hit by something, and then they can make a dex or take some fire damage, which is very highly resisted. You take a look at, Chromatic Orb, which can be acid if you wish for it to do, or if you wish for it to be, or a little a 15-foot cone of Burning Hands, highly resisted. But it's, you know, a lot of these are just kind of a one and done. Magic Missile again. If we're using this as like Magic Missile is sort of like the Space Marine equivalent of comparison of power level to Dungeons and Dragons. This is what we call a mech, MEQ, a Marine equivalent. So it's cool. I like it thematically. You can have a lot of damage output, and of course, because it's acid, you could probably roleplay that as well. I mean, if you can just spew acid for a minute onto something, let alone a creature, then maybe you can melt through a door, maybe you can melt through some metal or something along those lines, and you can have some roleplay fun with it as well. Yeah, it is an all or nothing, and so you can you can just keep trying to hit them. And really, it's not even that necessarily that the damage is all or nothing. It's, are you covered in acid or not? And there's a little distinction, because if you're covered in acid, you'll always take the full 3d4. And then you will always have to sacrifice an action to get rid of the acid. And that's not even counting for it possibly being splashed on you again in the meantime. So, you know, the 30-foot line is a little bit of a saving grace in this regard, because you could probably just run away and scrape it off. So you lose a turn, you move away, which would be possibly advantageous to the spellcaster here as well. Offer some battlefield control. If not by saying, I'm just going to squirt a minute's worth of acid into a puddle, and, I don't know, maybe make it so that I can't be approached or something. So, this feels a little too overpowered for me. Otherworldly, and, you know, I'm sorry I don't have a math sheet open here. This is a very casual conversation. let's just share our ideas or anecdotal thoughts, or even if you've done some number crunching yourself, you're welcome to share that too. Otherworldly form, a 6th level transmutation. Concentration up to a minute. Uttering an incantation, you draw on the magic of the lower planes or upper planes, your choice, to transform yourself. You gain the following benefits until the spell ends. You are immune to fire and poison damage, lower planes, or radiant and necrotic, upper. You are immune to the poisoned condition, lower planes, or the charmed condition, upper. Spectral wings appear on your back, giving you a flying speed of 40. You have a +2 bonus to AC. All your weapon attacks are magical, and when you make a weapon attack, you can use your spellcasting ability modifier instead of dexterity or strength for the attack and damage rolls. You can attack twice instead of once when you take the attack action on your turn. You ignore this benefit if you already have a feature like extra attack that gives you extra attacks. Ooh, it sounds really good, huh? I mean, you're a spellcaster, and you turn into this representation of the planes. You take on a demonic form or an angelic form. There's certainly a lot of good stuff here. By the time you're casting 6th level magic, right? You at 3 you get level 2, so it's 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. We're level 11 by the time that we would be able to get this otherworldly form. For many games, they end around 10. Or this would be like, I don't know, we're going to end our game at level 12, everyone. Get your last ASI before we fight the big bad evil guy. I don't necessarily think this competes with anything that is... combine that with a Red Dragon Mask, and you could heal half damage with a Fireball. I'm not sure what a Red Dragon Mask is, James. Though, of course, I mean... taking magic item considerations into something like this is, it's dangerous for general consideration. However, if we're always looking for ways to stress test a spell or an effect or something along those lines, then we can bring up situations like that for sure. Also, good morning, James, if I didn't say it already. Pardon. Now, I do believe that there is... yeah, Tensor's transformation here. If we want to compare something that turns a caster into more of a brute, this is a spell that does that. I will say that if we look at Tensor's transformation, while Xanathar's Guide to Everything is pretty much the 4th core rulebook, it still would behoove us to make sure we're primarily considering the spells available in the player's handbook first. Let's see what Tensors would offer for something similar here. Now, Otherworldly only lasts for a minute. Tensors last for 10, This also has a very expensive component. This has a few hairs from a bull. You endow yourself with endurance and martial prowess fueled by magic. Till the spell ends, you can't cast spells, and you gain the following benefits. You gain 50 temporary hit points. You have advantage on attack rolls you make with simple and martial weapons. When you hit a target with a weapon attack, that target takes an extra 2d12 force damage. You have proficiency with all armor, shields, simple weapons, and martial weapons. You have proficiency in strength and con saving throws. You can attack twice instead of once. Immediately after the spell ends, you must succeed on a 15 con saving throw or suffer 1 level exhaustion. By the time you're 11th level and beyond, 1 level of exhaustion if there's not a rider that says it can only be removed by something, that's nothing. You know, you have your friend, you have your friend Clerico. Come on, hang in there, and you know, take care of that. Or you transform at the end of the day for the whatever, or you use it in the boss fight, so you don't care if you're exhausted afterwards. So, you know, it's something to consider, but it's negligible at a higher level like this. You know, you get some versatility. I think they're pretty comparable. I don't think Otherworldly Form somehow supersedes Tensor's transformation. Though an interesting sticking point, though, might end up being that while we do get proficiency with these certain weapons, so our wizard will turn into a muscle wizard, we can use our proficiency. We're a muscle wizard in concept only, because this is not allowing us to use our spellcasting stats for our physical attacks. We'll just get that average mechanical +5 or -5 that is, well, I mean a +5 for advantage, -5 for disadvantage. So, you know, the proficiency helps, and we get this with saves, and we can attack twice, though this is not only going to let us fly, and we can still cast spells, which is, you know, says up to a minute. It's also concentration. But this is giving us some immunities, a flying speed, extra AC. All our weapon attacks are magical, and we can use our spellcasting ability modifier. And this is the same, so there's really no reason comparing it. Maybe you take both for a situational thing, although I think if we're both given the option, more people would probably go for Otherworldly, since in the meta of D&D, a minute is 7 rounds longer than most average combats. And a minute is pretty long in the context of a boss fight as well. And the fact then that we can fly, have a greater AC, we can still cast other spells, and all this, this would make it a more potent. Tackler, does a holy weapon do that too? If we're talking specifics, I guess I'd have to know the properties of what you're trying to consider, Tackler. So, compared to Tensor's transformation, Otherworldly Form, in many cases, seems like a superior choice. Now, Tensor's transformation will still let you keep your form. And you know, there are different ways. Maybe it's more of a role play, or it allows for more stealth or things, because you don't sprout these wings, or you know, have all this other stuff going on. Though compared 6th level transmutation to 6th level transmutation, I feel like Otherworldly Form is stronger. Not that Tensor's doesn't have a use. Oh, I don't think it, unless it's an older edition you're talking about, Tackler. Because there's something like Magic Weapon that you cast, and that just, you know, adds a short-term, like, +1 to a sword or to a hammer. You know, Hero's Feast doesn't even turn people into bruisers. You know, it fortifies people. But yes, Tackler, if you have more specifics, then let me know. But oh, in Xanathar's Guide. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong book then. I absolutely do not have all the spells memorized, so specificity for references helps out a ton. Okay, there we go. Holy Weapon Evocation. You imbue a weapon with holy power. It emits bright light. Deals an extra 2d8 radiant. Bonus action, you can dismiss this spell. Doesn't necessarily turn someone into a bruiser, not like the transformation spells do. Holy Weapon will put, Smite's already on a stick, but Holy Weapon is just extra damage. Yeah. Don't worry, Tackler. If you have an inkling about something, or if someone else can step up and give that. So, I mean, you shed bright light, you deal a little extra damage, and you can end it to get a burst. But that doesn't necessarily turn someone into the type of bruiser that Otherworldly Form or Tensor's Transformation. Oh, gotcha. All right, no problem, Tackler. Hey, we're here to talk. We're here to exchange ideas or say, oh, yeah, so this is... what about this? What about this interaction? What about that? All right, Spirit Shroud. You call forth spirits of the dead, which flit around you for the spell's duration. The spirits are intangible and invulnerable, and they are good or evil, your choice. Until the spell ends, any attack you make deals 1d8 extra damage when you hit a creature within 10 feet of you. This damage is radiant if the spirits are good, and necrotic if they are evil. Any creature that takes this damage can't regain hit points until the start of your next turn. In addition, any creature of your choice that you can see that starts its turn within 10 feet of you has its speed reduced by 10 feet until the start of your next turn. All right. This... This can be very, very devastating. And not because of the extra D8 damage. Of course, if you want to break things, I think because Warlocks get this spell. If you have a specifically built Eldritch Blaster Warlock, it can get a ton of extra damage out of Spirit Shroud. And especially if you combine that with the speed reduction. So you're getting extra damage with every hit. Paladins get this too, my friends. And when I say Warlock, if I'm talking Warlock in this instance, look, let's be real. We're talking Hexblades. A Hexblade with this is going to have a lot more output, whether it is through melee hits or whether it's through Eldritch Blasts. That lowering the speed means that you can stay on them and consistently pour damage into them. And what really stood out to me for this spell is this. In most instances where it is party versus environment, the party versus, whatever, a band of goblins or some skeletons are, kind of clattering down the road. Yeah, an extra 1d8, not terrible. Maybe they're already slow, or, you mess with their speed a little bit. It's a 3rd level necromancy spell, seems pretty good. Where this can be extra devastating, is what's highlighted. Any creature that takes this damage can't regain hit points until the start of your next turn. If I'm using this against you as your dungeon master, because maybe you're being hunted down by, a cultist or a fanatic or something along those lines, healing for a party is more important than healing for monsters. Some monsters do heal, but the party really relies on healing. If I am not only outputting more damage, and I'm consistent with my damage because you can't get away, I'm also preventing regaining hit points. This is a player killer spell. Especially for groups, or even if you're hunting monsters that use healing, or whatever, NPCs of some variety, villains that require healing, this will destroy them, or it very much can. It is on self, but if we're talking Hexblade Warlocks and Paladins, imagine that, because the Paladins can still smite on top of the Spirit Shroud. And remember that this is any attacks that you make. So it's a weird thing to point out. Well, yeah, so this is what breaks it, is the not regaining of hit points. Which, in the context, imagine how this is used. If this is just players versus environment, whatever, they're hunting something where healing's not a factor for the monsters, I think it's fine. But yeah, if you're the one getting hunted by a Vengeance Paladin, who can cast other spells, that'll like hold you in place or something like that, to really roll up on you and just start smiting you down. Ooh. Hit points are gonna drop quickly. Summon Aberrant Spirit. Now, I'm gonna... this is going to just be Summon Spirit. The good here is that compared to the other summon spells, this might seem a lot more manageable. There's less flipping through books. Probably a lot less animosity or number fudging or forgetting. Hopefully more forgetting than fudging. Number fudging at your tabletop. Because all of these spells, Aberrant Spirit, Bestial Spirit, Celestial Spirit, and by the way, so we have 5th, we have 4th for Elemental Spirit, Fey Spirit is 3rd. They're at different levels, but they are all going to operate differently. 6th level Conjuration. And what's nice then is if you really want to play a summoner, summoning is something that always can be problematic because you're filling the board with so many more extra things to track. So unless you as the summoner are on your game, even if the DM gets to pick whatever, it's a lot of extra homework. And so there are perhaps many games that disallow summoning, or at least say, yeah, but you can only summon these things. It's a curated list. Something along those lines. This approach takes summoning and says, here is one stat block that is appropriate in its output and abilities for the level that you're casting it. And then you get to choose one effect to spice it, to give it a little bit more customization mechanically, let alone any way that you want to describe it in character. Only a die step up from Hex. Generally, I've seen any per attack bonus damage ruled as once per spell attack. Maybe it could use a way to remove it. To remove the, to save against the no healing or something, James? Or... because keep in mind, as this is written, this says, until the spell ends, any attack you make. Which is a spell... you could cast several Eldritch Blasts. Or you could swing several times. Any attack you make deals the extra damage. So it's not even just a 1d8. This is a d8 per Eldritch Blast. This is a d8 per Warhammer blow or something along those lines. So in this case, verbal somatic material, the lower level's 200, the higher level's 400. Concentration up to an hour, concentration up to an hour, concentration up to an hour. A lot of this is going to be the same, which is good. I think this is going to cause a conversation, sort of like what people had against 4th edition. I liked 4th edition. I'm the one. I'm the guy who liked 4th edition. Because people said, well, this is just too... all this is math. Where's the fluff? Where's the fluff? Where's the fluff? Because all we're getting is math. All we're getting is, at this level, you're going to have this output. And it's just a boop, 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 a steady climb. Add whatever effects you want. I mean, there's wonderful descriptors here. There's inspiration for you to help imagine something. But I like the fact that the math is easy and straightforward here. All right, I'm sorry, that's Acid Stream. So anyway, how do these spells work? Whether it's bestial or elemental, you call forth the spirit from place, and then it manifests physically. It'll describe how it can be interacted with, or perhaps how it does manifest. With the aberrant spell, a beholderkin, a slotty, or a starspawn. Physically resembles your choice, which determines some of the traits in the stat block. Friendly, the creature is friendly to you and your companions. It goes on. It shares your initiative, which, thank you. I've done this anyway as a DM. I don't want 10 different initiatives for all these different summons or whatever. You summoned it. It's yours. It goes on your turn. There we go. So I'm glad that's included in here. It obeys verbal commands that you issue to it. If you don't issue any, it defends itself, and it has an upcast. The aberrant spirit has these stats. Immunities, senses, languages, just like the monsters would that you would normally summon. And then you get your bonus. If you are going for a slotty version, then it regains 10 hit points at the start of its turn. If it's a star spawn, each creature within 5 feet of it must succeed on a wisdom saving throw against your spell save DC or take 3d6 psychic damage. And they don't have one for the beholderkin, as far as things like the aura or the regeneration. However, the beholderkin does have this ranged spell attack that floats 3+ spells level to hit, and it deals psychic damage. And it deals a number of attacks equal to half the spells level down. Oh, I'm sorry. The beholderkin does get something static. That was the fly speed. I'm like, yeah, it seems a little weird, but I thought it made it up for it in the attack, but no, I missed it up here. The beholderkin gets to hover. So, otherwise, it's they're kind of wiggling on the ground. So, yeah, you get the one thing. You only need to track one set of stats and flavor it how you want. Describe it how you want. It's a lot more elegant. You can write this on an index card or print it or something like that. And you still, as the summoner, need to make sure you're on your game and you're not fudging numbers and all this. But it's a lot less complicated than trying to track, 6 pixies or something along those lines. So the customization is nice too, because that does promote battlefield awareness, and it does put the choice. It does put the choice in the summoner. Oh, I'm using the wrong letter here. Boop. This sentence right here. The DM has the creature's statistics. Now, many DMs may very well just allow the player to choose what they want. You know, you summon face spirits to take the form of beasts and appear in unoccupied spaces. Choose one of the following options for what appears. You know, you could take this as, well, I get to choose. However, the DM has the creature statistics. The DM could say, no, I'm choosing. You want 4 beasts of challenge rating half or lower. These are the spirits that answer your summons. This can help get rid of some of that ambiguity. Yeah, James, so you've rolled it, either as a player or a DM. And honestly, as a dungeon master, if I'm running an encounter, I have a lot of other things I want to worry about that don't include tracking 8 beasts of challenge rating 1/4 or lower. I have very little interest in adding that complexity, which also then come into their own initiative. So this is a redux. The Unearthed Arcana is a nice redux, and it puts the power in you as the summoner and the responsibility. Because then I, as the dungeon master, you know, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to say, all right, so this is what you conjure, I'll work with it because I'm focusing on this. Now, I understand why these original conjurations, worked as such, because maybe you don't know what you're going to get. Or by default, that's what they wanted to have happen. But, they said, look, the DM will probably just let the person choose anyway. Though, in practicality, it can create a lot more of a nightmare. Could more than 4 summons not be declared as a swarm and therefore a single unit? I mean, being a swarm has its own sort of properties, Phoenix. But just because there's 4 of something around, doesn't mean that they I guess they get that property. Unless I'm missing something that you're asking about, Phoenix. Can you clarify that for me? Yeah, some of the animals might already be swarm by default. So it's not really the number. 8 beasts doesn't necessarily mean that that's a swarm. Because it could be 8 rats. However, there's also a swarm of rats, which is different than 8 individual rats. Well, I guess. It's something if it's a custom rule like that, it may very well reduce that. You'd want to make sure you communicate that with your players first. So yes, all the summons here, all the summons here are a lot more streamlined, and I think they still let you have a lot of wiggle room for how you want to present your summons. It does empower you as the summoner very directly with what you want to summon specifically, and gives you this, this fixed escalation of how you want the spell to grow and the damage and all of that. In my read through of these spells, prior, because this isn't my first look at them, and also I will say, oh geez, this was now 3 weeks ago. Pete and Jeremy over in their fantasy labs at D&D time also did a discussion on these spells too, and I would urge you all, if you have not checked out D&D time, please be sure to go and do so. Pete and Jeremy are awesome people. In fact, I'll be playing in game 1 tomorrow. I guess technically today. And so, hey, if you're like, well, who's this dude? I've seen him be a DM on Tuesdays. I hear him do workshops on YouTube or here on Twitch when we're live, or on a VOD later. But how does he play? Well, it'll be your chance to find out. So yes, I like what they did with the summon spells here. They're still thematic. You have the ability to customize. Now you might have a qualm about, how an aberration like, I don't know, Beholderkin. If you're gonna call something Beholderkin, because even a little gazer has the little extra eyeballs. So how can how am I only getting this? Like, shouldn't I be able to shoot more as a beholder? So, don't call it Beholderkin then if you don't want to. This would then be more of a nitpick, not on the power level, but now we're just getting into how are we describing the thing as manifesting. If I say I'm playing an assassin in D&D, you might think, oh, you're playing a rogue. Because only assassins are called assassins that are, 3 levels of rogue, and they took that as their, I was going to say prestige class for a second. No, what are you talking about? I'm playing a ranger that has humans as a favorite enemy. Of course I'm an assassin. I'm an assassin by trade, and the fact that I can murk a human in no time makes me an assassin. Oh, I thought you were talking assassin because assassin blah blah blah. So we have to be careful. Oh, hey, Custos.
Being essential sucks. I want to be a peon again.
Oh, well, Custos, thank you for being essential, and you work a ton, brother. So thank you for sharing some of your free time and by stopping by and seeing us. So don't get caught up if something is called a Beholderkin. That's a placeholder. It's a point of reference. But don't expect the mechanics to follow the descriptor of of this word here. Especially because this might just be changed to something else. If we get down to it, if we're play testing and we're stress testing, we're worried about this stuff working, and then we can nitpick on what we want to call it. Do you not like how the bestial spirits are described or what you can choose? As you get an amphibious beast, a flying beast, or like a wolf, like a pack tactics. Well, you can change the verbiage in the physical description. So I will urge all of you, read through this and compare it to these conjuration spells that exist in the player's handbook. See if they're, if you like the power level. See if you are, are these a replacement? In fact, here, let's go to Summon Bestial Spirit. This is actually a 2nd level compared to Conjure Animals of 3rd. Although that's Fey, so that might actually be, Conjure Celestial 7th. Yeah, and this one is 5th. So you could even still take both. One's higher level than the next. But yeah, please read through this and, determine for yourself, is it going to be more efficient for you? Either to replace or just encourage your players to use that content instead. Does this have to be a mace? Does this have to be a bow? Go with what the mechanics are allowing. You reflavor it what you want it to be. In my go-through, this is just, please believe me, nothing necessarily stood out as terrible or overly powerful. And I think that the functionality and the increased playability about it, I think this is the direction that we're going to see for a lot more summoning options. That way it doesn't slow down the game as much or make a lot more complex situations. So those are the summons. Shadow spell. Oh, there is one for the undead here that I thought a very good point was brought up. The one of these has a very powerful. I'm sorry, not the shadow. One of the undead spirits has a very powerful ability, and I believe was that the ghost. Or was that the putrid? Because that's the paralyzation one. Frightened, paralyzed. I should have made a bookmark. I have the technology. Ghost can hover. It might have been the ghost. Because it can fly, it has incorporeal movement. And I mean, there's the frighten spell, but the fact that you can always reach out of rocks or whatever and do that as you're passing by is very powerful. Creature other news starts its turn within 5 feet. Now that could be allies. Must succeed on a con saving throw against your spell save or be poisoned until the start of its next turn. Poisoned is a really powerful condition. Now, poison does have a lot of resistances and immunities to the damage type, and sort of by extension the poisoned condition. But the fact that this is always on in the putrid, this is pretty gnarly here. The Grave Bolt getting, kind of Eldritch Blasts. Whatever. Oh, yeah, I think the Wombo combo was, not only are you poisoned, and I think poisoned means saving throws at disadvantage. If someone has the conditions up, and can remind me of that real quick about the poison condition. So if you already have that by default of the aura, then things like the Rotting Claw, then you make a con saving throw against spell save, and then you're paralyzed as well. And so this just shuts people down. So the Undead Spirit, I think that was the note. The Undead Spirit does, through status effects, I think can be really good. You throw it in the mix. You just got to watch out, though, because the Putrid will hit allies. And you probably don't want... I mean, not physically with a claw attack, but that aura. So you'd want to use it very judiciously. Could you cast it as a careful spell to protect allies? I don't know if that's how that meta magic... Let's double check, because I don't know 100%. And it doesn't hurt to go and look real quick. Meta magic, careful. This is more, so this is more for an instantaneous. Yeah, you can only use one. Oh, no, that's when you cast it. I don't know. Maybe you could argue with a DM about that, James. Maybe. But, careful spells more for... I think it's at least intended for things like lightning bolts and fireballs. I don't know if you could have an ongoing rider of a careful spell onto something that lingers. But, have that conversation. Especially because this is playtest material here. Also, for things like that, I'm sure there's going to be a reference to Jeremy Crawford. He does tweets back and forth about FAQs and, errata and whatnot. And that could be, that could have been brought up. If you can use careful spell in a concentration to provide an ongoing effect. Or is it a one-time? So yeah, I mean, those are the new spells. Congratulations, we went over them. Ta-da! That wasn't too terrible. And I know a lot of this, I wasn't trying to hand wave, but I like this direction. Some things probably need a better descriptor. This is based on emotion, and maybe it needs a better word to describe something. Nothing seemed too onerous, so it'll probably get a little adjustment beforehand. Demons, devils, Yugoloths, which is the neutral faction of the fiends. You know, and you say, why do the demons fight this way and get necrotic, but devils set things on fire? Or why do Yugoloths get claws and only demons can bite? The labeling is, I don't know, it's a placeholder, but this isn't every Yugoloth. This is, I guess, something in the vein of it. Or, you know what? Make this your interpretation of a Yugoloth. So it's a Yorgoloth. Alright, magical tattoos. Dorak, I don't know if you're still with us here. I know you had a question, or you're interested in it. Blending magic and artistry with ink and needles, magic tattoos imbue their bearers with wondrous effects and abilities. Magic tattoos are initially bound to magic needles, which transfer their magic to a creature. The designs of magic tattoos vary greatly in appearance depending on who created it, but they share general characteristics that hint at the effect of the tattoo. Once inscribed on a creature's skin, damage or injury doesn't impair the tattoo's function, even if the tattoo is defaced. The rarer the magic tattoo is, the more space it occupies on a creature's skin. The magic tattoo coverage table offers guidelines for how large a given tattoo is. Common, up to 6 inches, half a limb or the scalp for an uncommon, 1 limb, 2 limbs in chest, 2 limbs in the torso. These items needn't be limited to just tattoos. They can instead be presented as other body modifications, such as brands, scarification, birthmarks, patterns of scales, or any other cosmetic skin adornment or alteration. Consider the object a magical body modification is bound to instead of the tattoo needles, such as branding irons or enchanted dragon scales. The magic tattoos are presented in alphabetical order. They follow the rules for magic items as presented in the DMG. So, for instance, an absorbing tattoo. This is a very rare, which would require 2 limbs or the chest or upper back. This tattoo incorporates designs that emphasize one color more than others. While the tattoo is on your skin, you have resistance to a type of damage associated with that color, as shown on the table below. The DM chooses the color or determines it randomly. When you take damage of the chosen type, you can use your reaction to gain immunity against that instance of the damage, and you regain a number of hit points equal to half the damage you would have taken. Once this reaction is used, it can't be used again until the next dawn. To attune to this item, you hold the needle to your skin where you want the tattoo to appear, pressing the needle there throughout the attunement process. When the attunement is complete, the needle turns into the ink that becomes the tattoo, which appears on the skin. If you have multiple magical tattoos, they count as a single magic item with regard to the number of magic items you can attune to. If your attunement to the tattoo ends, the tattoo vanishes and the needle reappears in the closest unoccupied space to you. So all of the different tattoos can count as one attunement. And the limitation in this instance isn't necessarily the number of attunement slots you have. As an artificer, normally you just have 3. But it's the coverage. Now, where this becomes a sticky wicket, you know, Razia, James, Death, anyone else out there? What if I'm playing a centaur from Ravnica? I suddenly have 2 extra limbs because I have 4 legs and 2 arms, naturally. If I am playing a Goliath, up to 6 inches is a lot less real estate than it is if I'm playing a gnome. And I can see that I am getting the intention, right? Rules as intended, sort of what James was talking about above versus rules as written. I can see that this is, as it is written, it is going to be brought up in, you know, well, it says, actually, DM, it says up to 6 inches, and so I will let you afflict me with this tattoo that I totally want, and I will only have it be 6 inches, though. Now, I'm playing a Goliath, and therefore, statistically, actually, I have the surface area, blah, 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 blah. Meanwhile, the gnome player might feel punished. And this would be a lesson then for all of us when we're creating this, when we're creating homebrew content or playtest content. Consider these things. Consider that there are creatures or even player character races that have more than 4 limbs. What about Aarakocra? Aarakocra have 2 legs, 2 arms, and 2 wings. Look at Loxodon. Loxodons, you might count the trunk as an extra limb. What about the tail? What about the tail of a tiefling? Does that count as an extra limb? And yes, up to 6 inches could be a single dot as well, James. So I like this, and of course the creators wanted to be open. Do you want to have stretched out earlobes? Do you want to, fork your tongue, or tattoo your eyeballs, or what a lot of I don't know how much is a lot, but what people are doing to modify themselves. Do you want to put ball bearings under your forehead, and those are magical ball bearings? Or do you just want straight up tattoos, and do you want them to look like, are they just sort of like the sailor tattoos that you get, or is it, a dancing naked lady on your forearm or something, or is it a sacred tattoo, or something very cultural, like Pacific Islander tattoos? So I do get that they're keeping this open for a lot of interpretations because scarification and piercings and all of this, it's not just what the punk kids do. Not in spite of or for the sake of that openness. However, when we're talking about coverage, or, what if you just kept it simple and the tattoos were just attunements? Or maybe you don't treat them maybe you just don't treat the tattoos this way. Maybe the tattoos are something like a feat that you can take. So instead of a feat, or you count these tattoos as a feat, you provide that. Because otherwise it's nice. If you have a tattoo, a magical weapon you could still be disarmed. Someone can steal your bag of holding or your Heward's handy haversack. The tattoo, as it's described, not only can stack to fill only one attunement slot, but it can never be taken from you. Even if you're run through a shredder, it is still going to function, where other magical items would not function. And so it is powerful in that sense, too, that you can stack tattoos. It only takes one attunement, and there's nothing you can do except not attuning to that tattoo. Yeah, or just have a note that the number of tattoos, you get, I don't know, you can make an arbitrary number or something too, and just say 5. And then all the tattoo options would be balanced around that, Death Angel. So, this isn't bad. Now, it's very rare, so this would take up a lot, so it's not like, you can have the little, oh, here's a little green dot, here's a little red dot, doop, 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 doop. Because this is a very good one. Barrier tattoo. The rarity varies. This tattoo depicts protective imagery and uses ink that resembles liquid metal. While you aren't wearing armor, that tattoo grants you an armor class depending on the tattoo's rarity, as shown below. You can use a shield and still gain this benefit. So, uncommon version, 12 plus dex, rares, 15 plus dex, 18 flat is very rare. And once more, the tattoo attunement, how it disappears and all that. And of course, I do like that they include these rules tips when these are brought up in Unearthed Arcana. Coiling Grasp tattoo. This tattoo has long intertwining designs. While the tattoo's on your skin, you can, as an action, cause the tattoo to extrude into inky tendrils, which reach for a creature you can see within 15 feet of you. As an action, the creature can... must succeed on a DC 14 strength saving throw or take 3d6 force damage and be grappled. As an action, the creature can escape the grapple by succeeding on a DC 14 strength athletics or acrobatics check. The grapple also ends if you halt it. No action required. If the creature is ever more than 15 feet away from you, or if you use this tattoo on a different creature. So you can just give it up, or you can send it off to someone else. Uncommon and not bad. You could maybe wear a couple of these here if you want. I don't know why you'd want, but because as your action, you can have an average grapple at 15 feet away. Not terrible. Pretty cool. It's kind of like having a tentacle rod. You kind of turn your arm into a tentacle rod. It is nice because it deals force damage, which is, I think, only one monster either resists or takes limited damage, and that's the Helmed Horror. Unless they have something special going on. Actually, like a white resistance tattoo here. So it's force damage, and you're eating up their actions from a distance. If you have, I don't know, you're playing a wizard, low strength, maybe it's your dump score. Get some tattoos on your arm and grapple people as your action. 14 isn't a terrible number to beat, but it's more than what your wizard would be asking for if that wizard wanted to grapple. Eldritch Claw tattoo. This tattoo depicts claw-like forms and other jagged shapes. While the tattoos on your skin, your unarmed strikes are considered magical for the purpose of overcoming immunity and resistance to non-magical attacks. And you gain a +1 bonus to attack and damage rolls with unarmed strikes. Ooh. Wah! As a bonus action, you can empower the tattoo for 1 minute. For the duration, each of your melee weapon attacks can reach a target up to 30 feet away from you, as tendrils of ink launch from your weapon or unarmed strike towards the target. In addition, your melee weapon attacks deal an extra 1d6 force damage on a hit. Once used, this bonus action can't be used again until the next dawn. Now, so this is 1 fight per day, effectively. You can make melee weapon attacks up to 30 feet away. Blood Fury tattoo. Legendary. This tattoo evokes fury in its form and colors. While this tattoo is on your skin, you gain the following benefits. Your attack rolls score a critical hit on a d20 roll of 19 or 20. When you score a critical hit against a creature, that target takes an extra 46 necrotic damage, and you regain a number of temporary hit points equal to the necrotic damage dealt. When a creature you can see damages you, you can use your reaction to make a melee attack against the creature with advantage on your attack roll. Extra, you're critting on a 10%. It takes a lot of extra damage, and you're gaining life. So remember, if you deal 10 points of damage, then there is 10 hit points that have changed on the battlefield. If you deal 5 points of damage and regain 5 hit points, that's still 10 hit points worth of difference on the battlefield. Although, I would say that gaining hit points, even if it's the same number of hit points that were lost, is still stronger than losing hit points. Even if it's a 51 to 49 kind of a split. So I can see why this would be a legendary tattoo. The Illuminator's Tattoo. This tattoo contains beautiful calligraphy, images of writing implements, and the like. While this tattoo is on your skin, you can write with your fingertip, as if it were an ink pen that never runs out of ink. As an action, you can touch a piece of writing up to 1 page in length and speak a creature's name. The writing becomes invisible to everyone other than you and the named creature for the next 24 hours. Either of you can dismiss the invisibility by touching the script, no action required. Once used, this action can't be used again until the next dawn. Well, yeah, and so temps are in that weird kind of range. I set that out there just to show that there is, there is still a difference, and why this is also lending itself to be more in the legendary tier. But you are correct, James, and they have a note about that up here too. Cool. This is functional. You can pass secret notes. Very roleplay heavy. In fact, you might even be able to do something, it says you can touch a piece of writing up to 1 page in length. Or I'm sorry, not that part. You can write. I don't know, someone grapples you, even with another tattoo, and James, you're like, oh, let go of me. Or like someone grabs you from behind, you take your little like pen and you give them a little ink squirt or something out your finger. I don't know, something like that could even be fun. Although, with Illuminator's Tattoo, that by default, I'm like, oh, so it's, it's a light cantrip. You can just cast light. But I get why it's in regards to writing. But again, word choice versus the mechanics. If this goes forward, maybe it won't be called the Illuminator's Tattoo, since it's not necessarily dealing with light. Lifewell Tattoo. Comprises symbols of life and rebirth. While this tattoo's on your skin, you have resistance to necrotic damage. Alright. When you would be reduced to 0 hit points, you drop to 1 instead. You get a focus sash in Pokemon terms. Or the half-orc racial ability. Orc and half-orc. So, yep, rare. It'll save your life. Gives you necrotic resistance. Pretty good. That's a rarer one. Makes sense. Ghost Step. This tattoo shifts and wavers on the skin, parts of it appearing blurred. The tattoo has 3 charges, and it regains all expended charges daily at dawn. As a bonus action, while the tattoo is on your skin, you can expend one of the tattoo's charges to become incorporeal until the end of your next turn. For the duration, you gain the following benefits. You have resistance to BPS from non-magical attacks. You can't be grappled or restrained. You can move through creatures and solid objects as if they were difficult terrain. If you end your turn in a solid object, you take 1d10 force damage. If the effect ends while you are inside a solid object, you instead are shunted to the nearest unoccupied space, and you take 1d10 force damage for every 5 feet traveled. Pretty straightforward. It'll make a combat interesting. And it is always kind of like a get into or out of trouble free card. And this would certainly be one of those things where a DM might be baffled if this tattoo ends up on some like, oh, we're going to throw you in jail. All right. I guess I'm disarmed. And they have this tattoo and they can just phase out of the wall or something. Masquerade tattoo. It appears on your skin as whatever you desire. As a bonus action, you can shape the tattoo into any color or pattern and move it to any area of your skin. Whatever form it takes, it's always obviously a tattoo. It can range in size from no smaller than a copper piece to an intricate work of art that covers all your skin. As an action, you can use the tattoo to cast the Disguise Self spell. Once the spell is cast, it can't be recast until the next dawn. Oh goodness, I'm sorry, pardon me for the yawns. It is almost 5. Ugh. The Spellwrought tattoo, not to be confused with the Dwarven spell rites that we were exploring earlier in Eberron. This tattoo contains a single spell of up to 5th level, wrought on your skin by a magic needle. To use the tattoo, you must hold the needle to your skin where you want it to be. Turns into the ink. So rules for that as similar to attunement or writing a spell in a book or making a scroll. And the level of the spell is the commonality of your tattoo. This is where something like determining is it the per limb or the square inches available of skin or whatever. Because if I'm running a Loxodon, I can store a lot more tattoos on me in some ultimate sense. You know, it's once the spell ends, the tattoo does vanish, so you're not permanently carrying them around. But if I wanted to prepare for a big fight or something along those lines, and I'm running a bigger character that actually can wear more 6-inch tattoos, I might just want to, I don't know, fill up on a bunch of cantrips or first level spells. That way I always have them available to me. And I'm bigger, so I'm not going to lose out on like those shrimpy little halflings. Shadowfell Brand. This tattoo is dark in color and abstract. While it's on your skin, you have advantage on dexterity stealth checks. When you take damage, you can use your reaction to become shadowy and insubstantial for a moment, reducing the damage you take by half. Once used, this reaction can't be used again until the next dawn. Do you not like this one, Razia? Or what's with the faces? You know, some of this stuff is, you know, you're kind of finding a way. The tattoos are kind of a way to take invocations or infusions from warlocks and artificers and generalize them so that kind of what was talked about with James saying, oh, I don't have to splash fighter to get that 19 to 20 crit extension. And so these are magic items that are kind of... I mean, think of the tattoos... If you want to really condense it down, think of the tattoos as multi-class simulating items. You think it... Well, I mean, a rogue could presumably use it. Not all rogues are sneaks, though. I mean, you could play just a big bruiser thug rogue. But nothing says that... You know, a cleric couldn't have a Shadowfell Brand. Yeah, but the way it's written, you could spam shield or hellish. Yeah, exactly. Because you just cover yourself. But yeah, I think a lot of people can use this outside of a rogue, Rosia. Think of a fighter in full plate who would normally get disadvantage on dexterity stealth checks, and now it's just a neutral roll because the advantage cancels out the negative impact of the full plate armor, kind of a thing. So, things like that are very universal. There are certain classes that might lean very heavily into it. So, I think the tattoo's an interesting idea. Ultimately, if it just said we wanted to create an item that simulated multi-classing, that made multi-classing into an attunement slot taker, then, I understand it, as that seems to be what this is doing for me anyway. Maybe you're different, and that's fine. An interesting idea, not the implications, the implementation. So how many can I really have if I have 4 legs and 2 arms? Or 2 arms, 2 legs, and 2 arms, 2 legs, and 2 wings? Or what happens if I get a tattoo on my arm, but then I lose my arm? Do I have less tattoo now? Or is it still technically attuned to me because it was attuned to me even though it's not on me anymore? So there's a lot of room for misunderstanding or misinterpretation, or just a way for people to become confused. I like the idea. I think it's interesting. Maybe in some way that this is hey, look over here, and meanwhile, we're going to get something that was featured in 4th edition, which were hybrid classes and not multi-class. I don't know if any of you played 4th edition, if you're familiar with hybrid classes. And so maybe this is sort of like, people are showing interest here. Maybe this is a way that we can introduce hybrid classing into 5th. Who knows? But yeah, there we go. Thank you all for your opinions and your insight. For the comparison to Holy Weapon and whatnot before. Spell Rot might work as an attunement if you could cast it once per long rest. Yeah, like any saved spell, right, James? I have something similar in the works called Menesto's Tapestry. It's a small piece of leather that has to be attuned to for a few monster abilities, but you need to hunt the monsters personally. Oh yeah, so you're asking for a roleplay investment on it. Oh, and Pathfinder had hybrid too. While I did not know that, it is also not surprising. Which is no insult to Pathfinder. Yeah, and Razia, as a DM, whether it's playtest material or whether it's something out of a book, asking someone to roleplay into something can create so much fun. Can create many opportunities, or really have people, earn that growth, earn whatever advancements that you get.